so let's kick things off. Now, the economic bilateral relations between countries are incredibly important, boosting relationships and, of course, the respective economies of both nations. When we look at what's been going on between Germany and Nigeria, we had Chancellor Olaf Scholz visiting Nigeria in October of 2023. Then we had President Bola Ahmed Tinubu attending the German-Nigeria Business Forum. And then, of course, we should remind folks that Nigeria is Germany's second largest sub-Saharan African trading partner. So how can we keep this relationship going to the benefit of both nations? So to discuss further, we've got Mr. Weert Borner. He is the German Consul General here in Lagos, Nigeria. Mr. Borner, thank you so much for joining us. And it's good to see you again. One area of collaboration that's been talked about a lot is energy. There was, of course, the Siemens deal, which made a lot of headlines. Can you speak to that dynamic, how Germany, with its expertise, can get Nigeria where Nigeria needs to be in terms of a healthy energy portfolio?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. And concerning the energy sector, we started a bilateral energy partnership with Nigeria already in 2008, while we kind of in parallel started our own energy transition to renewables, to phase out over decades, of course, coal and other fossil sources of energy production and move to renewables. And in the recent phases of this bilateral energy partnership, we have been concentrating on the grid. There is a little history behind that. In 2018, Nigerian President Buhari and German Federal Chancellor Merkel signed an agreement to improve the grid in Nigeria. As we all know, there is some electricity production capacity in Nigeria, but only a small part of it is really reaching the final consumers. So this is something where we wanted to contribute with our technology. It's a PPP, so the governments, of course, are involved, but it's also private banks financing it, and Siemens Energy, our largest energy company, is behind it in the technical implementation. And the good news now is with the new government under President Tinubu, we made some progress, which means that in the first half of 2024, those measures under this so-called PPI, Presidential Power Initiative, managed to add 670 megawatt to the grid capacity, to the final consumers, which is about 15% of the whole of electricity production in Nigeria that is reaching the final consumer. So that's already a progress. And we are very happy to join Nigeria in this initiative with Siemens Energy and other experts.
Great stuff. And it's very encouraging to hear that. But I do want to ask you, Germany, of course, has embraced renewable energy. Right? We report it all the time on the show when we're looking around the world. Nigeria is a fossil fuel nation. And I'm sure you've heard the debate about how the West shouldn't try to coerce Nigeria into renewables. This is what is our natural resource. How do we, in your view, strike this balance? Because renewables are the future. So how do you see that working out for fossil fuel countries like Nigeria?
Of course, this is a very complex picture, as somehow, all of us, also Germany as an old industrial nation, started building its own industry up with fossil energy sources, right? Be it coal or oil or gas. In Germany, it was mainly coal. And the problem is, as we all know, greenhouse gases are violating our atmosphere. So we have an ongoing climate crisis already that goes back to greenhouse gases, meaning emissions from fossil fuels. So decarbonization is the kind of general task we all have. And this means, of course, for a country like Nigeria, that we are not asking Nigeria to just stop with all their fossil energy sources they have, be it oil or gas, but to especially start also for the future, for the near future, to build up renewables. Because renewables are not just a big environmental case, they are meanwhile, after all the developments in countries like Germany or Denmark or Spain or even the US, they are the best business case we can offer, for electricity production, for example. And I think what's important in the German case, that we are showing as the first big economy, amongst the G7 or however you define the biggest national economies around the world, Germany is already now, with the statistics of 2023, producing, of its huge demand of electricity it needs, 58% from renewables, mainly wind, solar, biomass.
That's impressive.
So that's a lot, and all our heavy industries, we still have in Germany steel and cement and chemical productions of global size, so to say, and it's a lot, and from day to day more is running on renewables. And renewables have been getting cheaper during the last 30 years from the very first development to today, whether you look at solar modules or solar installations, but even wind offshore, which is a bit more complex in installing and producing, it's getting cheaper by the day. So therefore, and I think one picture is showing this, that it's a global trend. And therefore, we think our message to Nigeria, I mean, we are still trading on oil, we are trading on gas, but that Nigeria doesn't miss this train, building up renewables, because renewables are meanwhile the cheapest solution, which this graphic shows, and they are also a good business case also in developing the country. And that's a very important experience, I think, from the German energy transition of the last 20 years. When we started, we had kind of, in a classical electricity production portfolio, we had about 300 big utilities, mainly coal and gas power plants, some nuclear power plants, producing all the energy needed for German industries, households, etc. Today, it's not 300 big utilities, it's 2 million decentralized electricity producers, because even a farmer who takes a piece of his land, or her land, and to build up wind turbines, is feeding the grid with renewable energy production. And that makes a totally different picture also of innovation, of jobs. Renewables are creating many more jobs than coal or nuclear or other, old sources of energy ever did.
I want to get to training, vocational training in Nigeria. I want to get your thoughts on skills, because I could spend the rest of this hour talking about, people say German engineering as a compliment when they talk about or German excellence, right? The Mercedes, the Daimlers, the Siemens, and so on and so forth, the Bundesliga. We want to be able to have human capital development built on proper skills. So, and I know Germany is collaborating with Nigeria on this. And so with respect to vocational skills, how do you see that dynamic being fleshed out between the collaboration between both countries?
Well, it's actually one of the most important sectors of our bilateral collaboration, both on the state side, from government to government, and then implemented by agencies funded by government like GIZ, our international cooperation agency, or via our chambers and others, but also when you look at the private sector, company to company relationship, and also college cooperation, because you may know the classical German model of what we call dual education. You go to college to learn certain things, which is not university, and then in parallel, you have practical training in companies already. It's real life in companies. And this model, of course, cannot be just taken from Germany or Switzerland or Austria and implanted, let's say, to Nigeria, because the conditions are different. But we have been already in the past adapting a lot with Nigerian partners, for example, to shorter programs, but with a lot of success. So if you look at just one example where we had a big success, a lot of joint impact. If you look at Edo State and the Edo Job Agency, that was partly also funded and built up with German assistance. And it's not just abstract abstract support that we offer. It's, for example, that we jointly decide on new curricula, because the world is developing onward. So if you take mechanics, today you need mechatronics, right? You need a high level of digitalized knowledge for example, for repairing machines and food processing appliances, etc. And for all this, it's this vocational training that we are very much supporting in Nigeria, and also many of our German companies active in Nigeria with factories, etc. They offer this vocational training in-house. So we try to support Nigeria's case here via government channels, but also in the private business world. And if I may just say, the main sectors is artisanry, plumbers and carpenters, etc. They have a modern role to play. Then, of course, it's mechatronics and all of this digitalized industrial uses we have. And the other sectors are IT, general services, hospitality, where we also offer vocational training, partly within German companies on Nigerian territory or via funded and supported channels with Nigerian partners.
Fantastic. I want to round off with healthcare. Another area that is talked about a lot in terms of not just healthcare quality, but affordability of healthcare. Again, Germany has, as far as health insurance and so on, you have a system that, is widely regarded around the world. So how can we make some gains there for healthcare?
I think that's a joint headache, because also in Germany we are in constant reforms, because health services are getting more and more expensive, and even in Germany there is a high percentage of population that cannot simply pay for sophisticated services and expensive hospital care, etc. But I would argue the main issue, that we have been discussing also with Nigeria, is to support some basic things, like, for example, laboratory services, that they get more professional, and there are also German companies involved. Then, for example, how to build hospitals cheaper and at the same time more sustainable. And just one concrete example, the Lagos Health Commissioner, Professor Abayomi, is in constant contact and cooperation with German companies and German consultants to get Lagos state hospitals cheaper in running. How do you save energy costs today in a hospital? How do you, for example, introduce solar energy into the hospital sector? Because it's not only more environment friendly than any diesel generator, it's also cheaper in the short and long run. So there are many kind of angles and points where we try to cooperate in improving the Nigerian health system and to support Nigeria's healthcare system, because we are not promoting this famous health tourism, where there may be a good installation in Germany, but only the very rich can afford the flight, to go to Germany for treatment. And actually, my wife and I, we get treated also by very good doctors and physiotherapists, etc., in Lagos. So it's possible, and we try to support this on various channels.
Fantastic. Look, we appreciate your time. We really do like the fact that you've come to illustrate and give us, views on how these German-Nigeria collaborations are working across different sectors. Mr. Weert Borner, of course, Consul General, Lagos, Nigeria, thank you so much for joining us on a Global Business Review.